These people that are communing with demons and engaging in this sort of witchcraft and stuff, and these people that are suppressing the name Christ and suppressing Christianity, they must be absolutely annihilated when we take power. This is God's country. This is Jesus' country. This is not the domain of atheists or devil worshippers or perfidious Jews. This is Christ's country.
Welcome back to the Nissim Black Show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Listen, you guys, Ben Shapiro, my man, my personal friend. Ben has been exposing people for many, many years. As he famously says, facts don't care about your feelings. But right now, this is something a little bit different. Everybody knows and everybody's feeling some type of internal battle, I would say, some type of civil war happening right now with TPUSA right now. It's very clear that Tucker, people like Tucker and Nick Fuentes are trying to position themselves in order to sort of like, be the new Charlie or be able to take, if they're not trying to be Charlie, which they can never be Charlie, they're at least trying to, grab on and to take his audience basically and to swindle them to him. Now, Nick was the arch nemesis to who Charlie was. And it would behoove me. I would be very, very hard pressed to believe that Charlie's core audience would ever fall for this. But when you're in the information stage and you're in the world of the internet, people forget things very fast. Very fast. So Ben Shapiro is going to expose them. We're going to watch this clip together, and I will react some. Please brace yourself. There's a lot of curse words in this. We'll do our best to beep them all out if we can. But unfortunately, when you have the devout Christian, Nick Fuentes, I'm sorry to offend Christians, you have to make sure you get some bleeps inside of there because you never know what you're going to hear.
Don't understand what's going on. Let's begin with Nick Fuentes. Now, from Tucker Carlson's interview, you might have gathered that Fuentes has some borderline views on race, a peculiar obsession with what he calls organized Jewry, and a rather sad relationship with the female sex. But probably you came away thinking that, for the most part, Fuentes lives on the radical edge of normality. You think that if you watch the interview, because Tucker Carlson decided that it was important not only to host Fuentes, but to smooth over his views, water them down, and make them far more palatable to a normal audience.
And this is a big problem, and I'm not trying to call people out that I respect, such as PBD as well. He also did, and I know there's a lot of people I'm gonna have whoever I want on my platform or whatever, but at least by PBD, he gave pushback to Nick, right? He pushed back. As word to Tucker, you got no pushback from him. And not only that, the fact that Tucker, all the while maintaining this close relationship with TPUSA, and also bringing on Nick Fuentes to validate him at the same time that he's, about to speak at this conference, the TPUSA conference. It's very, very shady, and it's really backstabbing, really, to Charlie and everything that Charlie was building.
As we'll discuss in a bit, this is what Tucker Carlson does for a living. But back to Nick Fuentes. To understand just what Tucker did here, we must actually examine what Nick Fuentes says on his show, and has said for almost a decade, because he was asked precisely 0 questions about any of what you're about to see by Tucker Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Fuentes says women want to be raped.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
And that's what he said after he fixed himself. I don't understand. I don't know if anybody else is understanding. He fixed himself from saying the R word. A lot of women want to be, oh, that sounds bad when I say it. But then he fixed it with what he said afterwards. You can't make this stuff up.
Nick Fuentes says that his followers should kill, rape, and die in his name.
Raise your right hand. All right, everybody raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I will kill, rape, and die for Nicholas J. Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes says that white people are justified in being racist.
Reason that we talk about this, by the way, I know a lot of black people see this and they go, man, why are you always talking about black people, this and that? Because there just needs to be some shame here. Well, there's a few reasons. First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
Nick Fuentes is a Hitler admirer and a Holocaust denier.
Buddy, it's Führer Friday. It is Hitler Friday. Shut up. It is Heil Hitler Friday, nigga. Heil Hitler, all my niggas Nazis. Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really cool. So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really cool. It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there. The math doesn't quite seem to add up there. I don't think you'd result in 6 million. Maybe 200 to 300,000 cookies. And I think the Red Cookie Association said something like that, probably 200 to 300,000 cookies baked, probably. And in addition, you know, in this hypothetical, I imagine that if you took aerial photographs over the kitchens, you would need to see certain smokestacks to release the smoke from baking the cookies, and the smokestacks would...
The guy's just evil. Just in case you didn't know, you're watching evil at its finest. I mean, just because even to spew these things, even if you want for the shock appeal or any of that, the average person wouldn't stoop so low. Like a normal, like just, you know, ill-mannered person would not say these things. I just want to say that for context, because I see that right now we're having a problem being able to comprehend that there's a such thing as actual evil, yes, today and our present time.
Project certain shadows, but I guess they're not visible in the aerial photographs taken over the kitchens. Moreover, if you look at the soil texture, it's really not deep enough for mass cookie storage underground.
Nick Fuentes believes that the Jews start all the wars, that perfidious Jews in positions of power ought to be killed, and says the Jews are filth who have to be removed from the country.
And once again, remember who is responsible for it all: the Jews. They are responsible for every war in the world. It's not even debatable at this point. This has nothing to do with oil. This has nothing to do with democracy. This has nothing to do with liberal internationalism. We are at war with Iran because they pose a threat to Israel's hegemony. That's why we're bombing their nukes, to pave the way for regime change so Israel can dominate the region, because that makes them the most powerful they can be.
It's just the stuff that is said here. And this is what Ben is saying. Tucker did not challenge any of these things. You understand what I'm saying? So this, and when you are not challenging these things, and a person that's as polarizing and as outspoken for evil like Nick Fuentes, you are complicit in these ideas. There's a reason why Tucker platformed him. There's a reason why Tucker gave him that opportunity, right? And it wasn't to obviously oppose any of these ideas. So please keep in spirit with what Ben is saying. And this is the reason why he did this, and the reason why I'm resharing it, because this needs to be shown to as many people as possible so they can know where we're standing today.
There is an occult element at the high levels of society, and specifically among the Jews. So many of the people that are perpetrating the lies and the destruction on the country, they are evildoers. They are people that worship false gods. They are people that practice magic or rituals or whatever. And more than anything, those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty. Straight up. And I'm far more concerned about that than I am about even non-white people or mass migration. These people that are communing with demons and engaging in this sort of witchcraft and stuff, and these people that are suppressing the name Christ and suppressing Christianity, they must be absolutely annihilated when we take power. This is God's country. This is Jesus's country. This is not the domain of atheists or devil worshippers or perfidious Jews. This is Christ's country.
So even as a non-Christian, I have a really tough time trying to understand what was inherently Christian about his message there. I just really have a tough time understanding what was inherently Christian about his message, right? Very familiar with the New Testament. I just don't remember any of that being preached at this Sermon on the Mount. I that one missed me.
Josh Hammer and Mark Levin, these people, like deeply, seriously, all real Americans, if you are a real American, if you were born in this country, I don't even care who you are, what you are, if you are a real American that loves this country, you have generations in this country, your family or you fought for this flag, fought for the Constitution, fought for our church, fought for our civilization. For all of you, I say about Josh Hammer and Mark Levin and Laura Loomer,
Shout out to Josh Hammer, by the way. He's going to be on the show tomorrow. Shout out to Josh Hammer.
them. Fuck them. Deeply, seriously get them the out of our country.
Wait, before you get back to the show, I just want to let you know that we have launched Nissim Black Store. All you have to do is go online, order yourself one of these amazing mugs, God is King, with a matching t-shirt. We have a whole plethora of different shirts that are all about representing God wherever you go. As believers in the one true God of Israel, it is our duty not to hide, not to back down, not to shy away from expressing our faith wherever it is that we go. If you want to go and walk righteously before your God with a nice t-shirt, with a nice sweater, with a mug that's reminding us constantly that God is here with us, go to nissimblack.store and make sure you get yourself some merch. It really helps support this channel and everything that we're doing and everything that we plan to do. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. I thank you all for all of your support. Okay, back to the show.
So, that right there is just a brief glimpse into the twisted mind of Nick Fuentes. And there's plenty more where that came from, of course, hours of it per day, in fact. And there's no doubt that Nick Fuentes has a lot of play these days. That's because the left, by moving into a politics of anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-male identitarianism, created its bizarro mirror image, a white pseudo-Christian incel identitarian movement dedicated to destroying the institutions of this country.
And this is exactly what I've been saying, that all that they did with Black Lives Matter and all this nonsense and this woke stuff and whatever is that they basically were able to give grounds to a guy like Nick Fuentes. It started to make everything that he said seem, and listen to those words, seem as if it was true, seem as if it was real. Even if it's over-exaggerated, even if 90% of it is falsehood, 90% of it is just pure hate, it still has grounds now. Because this is what people have to understand. I've said this before, but I want you to understand this. It should be a staple for us to understand how lies start, right? And how you're able to get these evil, tyrants and how they take power, whatever it is. You start with a little bit of truth, right? You can start with a little bit of truth. And once you start with that truth and people actually agree with that truth that you're saying, then you can start adding on whatever you can, as long as you can keep them emotionally engaged, right? And keep referencing the truth that you know, people will never pay attention to the fact that you've been stacking lie upon lie upon lie and that you're steering them to a different way. Because why? It started with truth. Right. So, yes, there's a problem with the feminism, what they've been doing, the transgenderism, the black fatigue. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. They have completely, every movie was under affirmative action and DEI. Everyone had to have either the star person had to be either, black or gay or trans or whatever the case is. And so then by them overdoing that, right, and pushing DEI, shoving all these things in and critical race theory down people's throats, right, the pushback from that, which is over-exaggerated, from people like Nick Fuentes and whatever else, gives that type of person grounds and wings. So you're right. Ben is absolutely right. The left created this monster.
And replacing Americanism with something else. Nick Fuentes' philosophy is not fully formed. It's an incoherent stew of malignity. But that's where Tucker Carlson enters the story. Mm-hmm. Now, since his exit from Fox News in 2023, when, of course, he was a very, very popular host, Tucker Carlson has turned himself into a conspiracist and a crank and a pathological liar. Tucker excuses Vladimir Putin's murderous and barbarous reign. He has even become one of his most ardent defenders.
It is so much nicer than any city in my country. I had no idea. My father spent a lot of time there in the 80s when he worked for the US government and barely had electricity. And now it is so much cleaner and safer and prettier aesthetically. It's architecture, it's food, it's service, than any country, city in the United States that you have to, and this is not ideological. How did that happen? How did that happen? And at a certain point, I don't think the average person cares as much about abstractions as about the concrete reality of his life. And if you can't use your subway, for example, as many people are afraid to in New York City because it's too dangerous, you have to sort of wonder, like, isn't that the ultimate measure of leadership? And that's true, by the way, it's radicalizing for an American to go to Moscow, I didn't know that, I've learned it this week, to Singapore, to Tokyo, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Because these cities, no matter how we're told they're run and on what principles they're run, are wonderful places to live.
So I guess you put in 10 rubles here and you get it back when you put the cart back. So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it and not just bring it to your homeless encampment. I went from amused to legitimately angry. So we were guessing what this would cost. Everybody here from the United States buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around 400 bucks, about 400 bucks. It was $104 US here. And that's when you start to realize that ideology maybe doesn't matter as much as you thought, corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us.
When Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin, by the way, Vladimir Putin was so amused by Tucker Carlson's easy questioning that he actually mocked him. Tucker Carlson has massaged the Iranian dictatorship and admitted to not asking any difficult questions of the president of that dictatorship.
The interview is limited by a couple of factors. One, it was done by remote through a translator. That's always awkward. For another, I don't speak Persian. And there are all kinds of questions that I didn't ask the president of Iran, particularly questions to which I knew I could not get an honest answer, such as, was your nuclear program totally disabled by the bombing campaign by the U.S. government a week and a half ago? There's no chance he's going to answer that question. Honestly, I didn't bother to ask it. The answer, in fact, from an American perspective, even from the CIA's perspective, is unknowable.
Tucker bizarrely worships at the altar of Qatar.
They're mad at you because you don't put your parents in some institution. Maybe they're trying to break up.
I mean, I'm sorry, I had to go through this. What is the point? Just think about this, guys. What is the point of interviewing these people, the president of Iran, the emir of Qatar and all that, if you're not pushing back and you're not trying to get to any truth or places of conflict where people may actually have the questions, right? Part of the journalism of you going to interview people is to ask questions that the public are going to want, or even your audience, right? So what I'm assuming is that nobody in his audience care. They're already complicit with Iran and with Qatar, obviously, which is the reason why he probably really felt no need to ask any questions. But what is the point of going to go there to ask questions that you know that they're only going to answer honestly, that's only going to make them look good? So would it have not been pointless to interview them in the first place? I don't get it. I just really don't get it.
Your families.
Well, it can be a reason. Honestly, I don't know what is really the purpose behind this, but we see that a lot of things that are happening are attacks on humanity in general. It's when you lose the family value, when you lose the connection between the family themselves, you will lose the connection between the people as well, on a broader level, on the people in the same neighborhood, on the people in the same region, in the same countries. And that's basically will just make us, as individuals who are, quote unquote, independent from anyone, that's what we will feel. Yet it will just make our societies vulnerable and easy to be penetrated.
That's right.
Tucker Carlson praises Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, even as Maduro keeps the entire country in communist penury and ships fentanyl into the United States to kill Americans by the hundreds of thousands.
Why are we so opposed to Nicolas Maduro? So if you ask someone on the street, random person, why are we against Nicolas Maduro? The answer.
By the way, just to keep in mind, Tucker is the American first guy. He is definitely interviewing people who are, I would say, at odds with American policy, with America as a whole, right? Just happened to be that the president of Iran, screams death to America. All right, like, guys.
You're going to get is who's Nicolas Maduro. But if you find someone in South Florida, for example, who knows who Nicolas Maduro is, who can identify where Venezuela is on a map, that person will almost certainly say, well, because he's a communist or a socialist, he's exceedingly left-wing, and that is true. Nicolas Maduro and his government are very left-wing on economics, not on social policy, by the way, which is kind of interesting. In Venezuela, gay marriage is banned, abortion is banned, sex changes for transgenderism are banned. It's one of the very few countries in the entire hemisphere with those policies. It is on social policy, not defending the regime, just saying, one of the most conservative countries in North or South or Central America. Only El Salvador really comes close.
Tucker Carlson glosses Hamas, the genocidal jihadi group behind October 7th, as a political organization.
You can't claim that they're in Hamas while simultaneously claiming that Hamas is a group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly, which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization, but whatever it is, they're telling us constantly they're Al-Qaeda.
Tucker Carlson has attacked President Trump as a cover-up artist for sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein on behalf of Israel and Mossad, making sure, of course, never to mention President Trump's name, because, of course, Tucker's a coward.
And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that.
Tucker Carlson also said in his interview with Nick Fuentes that the people he hates most in the entire world, more than ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Trans-Tifa, Marxists, rapists, murderers, are Christian Zionists who represent an enormous chunk of the conservative base. According to Tucker Carlson, who admits that he first read the Bible all the way through just 2 years ago, Christians who support a Jewish state of Israel are heretics and blasphemers with a brain virus.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I have seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I could just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because like what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian.
And this is the guy who just read the Bible. This is the same person I said does not have any, you could tell has no background, no biblical literacy. I mean, you could see by these, I mean, when people live life based off of a godly encounter, meaning that God has to some degree radically changed their lives, okay? It doesn't look like Nick Fuentes. It don't look like Tucker Carlson. It doesn't look like Candace Owens. That's what it doesn't look like. This cannot be overemphasized enough. That's not what it looks like. And for Tucker, who just now and over the last few years starts speaking about his Christianity. I mean, you could go throughout whatever the case is. And like he just mentioned, he just now read the Bible. He's already in the position to be a theologian enough to tell you who's committing the heresy here or who not. 85% of the Christian Bible is talking about Israel, the land of Israel, all the promises, the eschatological, like writings, all of the prophets, the future is all revolving around Israel, the land, the people, whatever the case is. And they're the heretics. I just, as I said, you can't make this stuff up.
Most of all, Tucker Carlson acts as an ideological launderer for other people's evils. Tucker Carlson says many inflammatory things, always buying back just enough of it to appear as though he's not saying what he's clearly saying. He's a master of gaslighting. Tucker Carlson, for example, would never say out loud what Nick Fuentes does. He wouldn't say the things many of his guests say. And so instead, he acts as an ideological launderer.
Exactly. So he's not going to say it himself, but he'll bring on the people that will say it and not push back, right? Because he has the platform. He wants to say it. He won't say it because he always wants to be able to pull the card out to say that I didn't actually say that. I never said that. How can you make such a claim? But you're platforming people that are saying it.
Takes other people's hideous ideas, he softens them, he treats them with love and care, and then he provides them with a massive signal boost. So, for example, he'll ask a series of wildly obsequious questions to Nick Fuentes. He'll even let Nick Fuentes' support for Joseph Stalin slide.
Listen, I'm sorry to stop the show for a second. I just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Market Ding. Look, in today's world, if people can't find you online, then you don't exist. That's where Market Ding comes in. They're a digital marketing and SEO company that used to dominate healthcare, but now they dominate just about everything. Whether you're running a business or a brand or even a podcast like mine, Market Ding knows how to get you found fast. So don't just show up online, grow online. So visit marketding.com today and watch your growth online explode. Okay, back to the show.
It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's?
Mm-hmm. Always an admirer. But we don't need to go into that, I guess.
Well, that's okay. Let's get back to it. We'll circle back to that.
Tucker Carlson will have on a Hitler-friendly pseudo-historian to minimize the Holocaust and blame Winston Churchill for World War II. And he will call him America's best and most honest historian.
I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people. He didn't commit the most atrocities. But I believe, and I think when you really get into it and tell the story right and don't leave anything out, you see that he was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did, becoming something other than an invasion of Poland. Germany.
I can't continue to go on. Shout out to Ben and Daily Wire for everything that they're doing. It cannot be said enough. You cannot allow, not even for a second, I'm talking about not even for a second, individuals like Tucker to, in any way, shape or form, position himself to where he's able to actually have the influence over Charlie's audience and everything that he built up for. So like I said, I don't know what's going on at TPUSA. I have no idea what's going on over there, but I can tell you what's happening from the outside, from what we're all seeing visually, is that there absolutely is no reason that there should be a connection right now, I believe, with Tucker. Now, if Charlie was there to make a decision to be able to bring Tucker on for this one or that one or whatever, that's fine. But to overdo it afterwards and to continuously put a man out there that is platforming people who, like, I've already played for all of you. And if you haven't, go check out my video recently where I was just speaking about Nick Fuentes and showing all the horrific things that he said about Charlie Kirk. His life's mission was to take down Charlie Kirk. Right. And then for Tucker to backdoor and get into TP. I mean, the whole thing is it's preposterous to me. I can't believe it. Make sure you guys like, comment, and as we always say, remember to serve God or to live trying. I'm out.